vaccines.
Curiosity Stream. Get free access to Nebula, the streaming-nominated platform built by and for creators, when you sign up for Curiosity. As the world rolls into its 9th month of the pandemic, many countries face rising cases and record daily case numbers. The United States alone accounting for nearly 10 million infections and almost 250,000 dead since March. As I predicted would be the case in a previous video, COVID is still very much a threat, and we've seen a new surge of cases as the country moves into the autumn season. But though we're certainly not out of the woods yet, and it would be foolish to think otherwise, there is a small glimmer of hope that we could see an effective vaccine in the very near future. In this episode, we're going to look at a promising vaccine that could be approved for emergency use as early as December. But we'll also consider the very real concerns with its distribution, cost, and the tremendous profits US corporations stand to make from the suffering of innocent people. On Monday, November 9th, American pharma giant Pfizer announced that a clinical trial of their COVID vaccine had proved more than 90% effective. That's a promising figure, especially given the fact that the virus has already killed more than 1.2 million people around the world, and a medical solution is desperately needed. This particular vaccine, developed in partnership with the German drug company BioNTech, was not one of the original 9 candidates developed at the World Health Organization's COVAX research facility, which aimed to develop a vaccine that could be produced and fairly distributed to populations around the world. This will be important later.
I'm following CNN on the other screen. He's not on yet because CNN on my screen is on a delay. Okay, so shut the fuck up. Also, who cares about what Cuomo has to say if we're being honest? Like, it's not that big of a deal. So chill the fuck out and watch this and learn a little bit.
If Pfizer's trial results are accurate, a 90% prevention rate would put this vaccine on par with other important drugs like the childhood measles vaccine. As far as we know, or at least as far as Pfizer has revealed, there are no serious health risks associated with their drug. They're still in the required 2-month period of collecting drug safety data, but if everything checks out, we can expect Pfizer to request FDA approval for emergency use later this month, with initial rollout potentially beginning as early as December. Company executives have claimed that by the end of the year, they'll have produced enough of this vaccine to immunize 15 to 20 million people. This isn't the only vaccine in late-stage trials. Pfizer's drug is only...
As far as the Nigerian kids goes, it's from a fucking successful trial. Like, I'm not making this shit up. It's not for the COVID vaccine, but it literally did happen. And Pfizer ended up paying out the Nigerian families of 4 children after a 15-year legal battle over the controversial drug in the state of Kano. Like, they did that. The parents of 4 Nigerian children who died of meningitis have become the first winners of a 15-year legal battle against Pfizer over a fiercely controversial drug trial. So that did happen. They do this shit a lot. They do, like, rich people will not be the fucking lab rats of a novel vaccine. Anyways, keep going.
One of 11 separate trial vaccines, 4 of which are based in the US. Since the virus entered the global spotlight, there's been a flurry of activity as pharmaceutical companies around the world try to figure out a solution, some with the partnership of the World Health Organization and others without. As with any new and critically important drug, independent scientists have cautioned that we don't know enough about it yet. There's still much data to be collected, and we can't even be certain that Pfizer's offering will yield permanent immunity. This information will become available as the clinical trials progress, and the trial is projected to end once 164 people out of the 44,000 participants have developed COVID-19. With the current rate of infection in the US, that shouldn't take long. Now, like just about every aspect of modern life, the business of vaccine production has been twisted by politics. One federal campaign, Operation Warp Speed, offered Pfizer $1.95 billion to deliver 100 million doses of COVID vaccine to the federal government, which would supposedly be distributed to the American people free of charge. At the time, this was the largest such offer from the US government. Pfizer executives have attempted to distance themselves from any kind of political deal-making, saying, "We were never part of the Warp Speed. We have never taken money from the US government or from anyone." That sounds reassuring until you realize that they absolutely have taken money from the US government. Specifically, over $500 million in public subsidies and assistance. Pfizer is not exactly known for their honesty or ethics. In 2009, the company set a record for the largest healthcare fraud settlement and the largest criminal fine in American history, $2.3 billion. I think it's worth suggesting that maybe we should treat their press releases and other claims with skepticism. At the end of the day, pharma giants like Pfizer exist to make profits. And there are few things more profitable to a drug company than a worldwide pandemic that demands a solution. This brings us to the most critical questions regarding the vaccine. How much will it cost, and who will be able to get one? Well, if we take Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla at his word, the vaccine will be available for free to all American citizens. That sounds great, until you realize that 14% of the people living in the US aren't citizens. If you want to ensure that the entire country is immunized from future COVID spikes, you have to vaccinate as many people as possible. If Pfizer, or whoever ends up developing the final vaccine, is able to produce enough of the drug to immunize everyone in the country, we need to immunize everyone in the country. There is no reason to arbitrarily leave people susceptible to infection when the virus doesn't care about your citizenship. Obviously, there will always be those obnoxious people who refuse to get vaccinated even when the vaccine is proven safe and effective. But that is a much smaller portion of the population than 14%. If we truly want to immunize our country, we have to make sure that everyone who is willing to get vaccinated has the ability to do so. Of course, this statement by Bourla could just be him misspeaking. He may very well have meant that every person living in the United States will have access to the vaccine for free. If that's the case, great. I applaud them for that decision. But I'll remain skeptical until the vaccine is actually available. This skepticism is based on prior behavior by American pharmaceutical companies. In the United States, we suffer under a ridiculously expensive for-profit healthcare industry. Need a ride to the hospital? That'll cost you about $1,000. Want to hold your baby after it's born? $40, which you'll be lucky to have left over after paying over $10,000 to have the baby. Even if you have good health insurance, it'll cost you over $4,000. If you think this would change during a pandemic, you don't understand how capitalism works. Let's take the pharma company Gilead, for example. Way back in 2009, Gilead began researching and developing a drug called remdesivir, which was intended to be used to fight hepatitis C. It went on to be considered as a potential Ebola treatment in 2013 and 14, and most recently, was deployed to treat the symptoms of coronavirus earlier this year. Upon the news of COVID's arrival, Gilead stock rose 9% in pre-market trading. The company also maintains a complete monopoly on the drug, and the US snatched up every single dose for several months. If you'd like to see a more in-depth look at Gilead and remdesivir, I've made a video on the subject. But the short version is this. Remdesivir has proven to be a fairly effective way to treat coronavirus in hospitalized patients. It has no effect on mortality rates, but for those who do recover, the drug tends to shorten the recovery time by about 4 days in the hospital, or 31%. The treatment consists of a 5-day series of IV drips, utilizing 6 vials of remdesivir. The cost of those vials? $520 each, for a total cost of $3,120. There's also a reduced government price, which applies to a very limited number of people, and does not include those on Medicare or Medicaid, those most vulnerable to getting seriously ill from the disease. The price for those lucky few? $390 per vial, for a total cost of $2,340. So, in the middle of a pandemic, with tens of millions of people without insurance or a paycheck, the only available treatment costs $2,000 to $3,000. 40%
Nice, dude. Nice!
of Americans couldn't pay for one single day's worth of remdesivir. How are they supposed to afford 5 days of that, on top of the incredibly expensive hospital stay? And
Good time to mention that 60% of households in America do not have $400 in emergency spending. Just to really hammer that shit in there. 60% of the country does not have $400 extra in emergency spending.
before you say, that's just Gilead recouping their R&D costs. Nope. The drug's development was funded by the US government using US taxpayer dollars.
You are misquoting that stat? Wait, how am I misquoting the stat? Explain how I'm misquoting the stat. Was it 40%? Did I fuck it up? 40% of... Oh, it is 40%. Sorry, it's not 60%. I was wrong about that. I apologize. This is from the Federal Reserve. Like, it's not like a random study. Okay? Spreading fake news. Yeah, I apologize. This is 60%. It's 40%. An insane number for the record.
The treatment could be free. A group of experts crunched the numbers and found that Gilead could turn a profit by charging just $10 for the treatment. $10. 300 times less than what they're charging. Yeah, but they could make more money. This is how pharmaceutical companies operate. They accept government funding, deny that they've done so, make promises they won't.
Well, some studies show 60, some studies show 40, but the one I commonly talk about is the one I've read, at least, is the Federal Reserve 2018 report on economic well-being of U.S. households. And it's the same as the Federal Reserve economic well-being of U.S. households from 2017. That's where that very commonly thrown around statistic comes from. The 60% or whatever the fuck, those numbers are other studies.
Keep, and when their product is ready, they'll slap a multi-$1,000 price tag on it. It remains to be seen whether this will be the case for Pfizer's COVID vaccine. Pfizer is pretty widely reviled as a company completely devoid of decency, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a steep fee attached to their drug. We won't know for sure until next year. We might see an early version of the vaccine used in emergency cases, but according to Pfizer's roadmap, the official rollout of the final vaccine for at-risk populations should occur in the late first quarter or early second quarter of 2021. One final red flag is the company's claim that they have a, quote, acute funding gap of $4.5 billion that could slow access to the vaccines in low and middle income countries.
Yeah. This is a huge problem that, like, all the wealthy nations are very likely, like, this is a gigantic problem that is going to happen no matter what, is that, like, all the wealthiest countries on the planet are buying out as many fucking vaccines as they can, as many dosages of the vaccine as they can, so that poorer nations are not going to have access to the fucking vaccine.
Seems to indicate that Pfizer is willing to hold the drug hostage until someone coughs up another huge round of funding, effectively ensuring that they make a healthy profit off the vaccine. Americans tend not to care about other countries, so as long as US residents are provided the vaccine, it will likely go unnoticed if Pfizer sits on a massive stockpile of vaccines until other countries pay their exorbitant ransom. Pfizer looks like the good guy for providing supposedly free vaccines to Americans, and the rest of the world continues to fight the disease until Pfizer is happy with the pile of money they've accumulated. This is not how it should happen. Any eventual COVID vaccine should be made available to every person who wants one. The profits of a single company should not determine who lives and who dies. At some point, we need to realize that there are things more important than money, and human life is one of them. If you've watched my last few videos,
this guy goes, wait, so over half of America actually has extra money? Are you fucking stupid, dude? $400 in emergency spending means they are living paycheck to paycheck. Are you idiotic? I didn't say that 60% of the country then has $1 million in additional fucking funds. Up that number. See how well that works out. Anyway,